Hey, it's Mike from My Rocky Start. Just because I had a rocky start doesn't mean you need to. Today I had an opportunity to do a video to help someone out. I was waiting for the time to do it, to clean the saw, and what I need to do is pull my cover off to change the fan blade. Now the reason I have to change the fan blade is while pulling the cover off and putting it back on, doing some modifications and fixing a couple of parts, I accidentally bumped one of the fan blades and broke it. So I'm going to replace it, especially now that I've got a chance. It's cleaning and summer's coming on, so I don't want things to heat up. So to do that, the tools you want to have on hand is 9/16 wrench, a Phillips screwdriver, and it's nice to have one that's long enough to get past the front of the box so that you don't have to do anything on an angle. And also just a small pair of needle nose pliers. And I'll show you what those are for. Just get my tools out of the way for a second. So with the saw unplugged, unplug your motor. And like I say, make sure it's unplugged. But with the switch, you can see the cutoff hanging out there. I turn the switch to the on position. That retracts the more of that rod, and that just makes it a little less likely to bend in a way that you don't want it to. And then just a slight bend, just enough to get the chain off, and you can actually leave that to a point where it just takes a little effort to get the chain off, and that way you don't bend that to a point where it's going to sit and scrape and cause you issues with the cutoff on your chain. So 1/2-inch wrench, 9/16 wrench. And it's got a lock nut on it, so it might take a little bit of force. It doesn't have to be necessarily that tight, but go ahead and get that to where you can turn it. And the reason I'm doing this is because I found you can bend the wire off of the switch and try and work things that way. But if you bend this wire on the cutoff, it makes it problematic, and it'll scrape, and sometimes it won't pull right, and you just want it to be as free moving as you can have it. And sometimes that's a little difficult to get off, but basically I'm just trying to get that last washer off because I don't want it to drop in the sludge. And there we go, got the washer off. Set those somewhere aside that you're not going to lose them. And we'll show you the rest here. So undo the screws for that cover. And it's usually easier if you do the top as the last ones. They're small screws. If you're working around it while you're cleaning it like I am, don't drop them in your sludge. Set those aside in a safe place. Make sure your tools and everything are off this before you take that last screw out. A lot of times it'll just sit there with no problem, but sometimes not. Okay, and I had already taken out the other screws just to make this a little easier. All right, if that's not going to come out easy, you can take the 9/16 wrench and actually turn that out while you hold the box in place. And I don't know if you can see it from that angle, but it is coming out. Might take you a few turns. But you'll get to a point where you can do it with your fingers. Okay, once you've got that loosened all the way, what you can do is you'll be able to pull this box off. Just carefully do that so you don't break the fan like I have. And there's just the two wires that you can separate. And just remember which ones they're plugged into, and you can get that box out of the way. Right now it's hanging by the cord, but you can see you can just leave that hanging. And what that does is you can work hard in that metal to a point where that's going to break. This is a replacement part. It's $25. You can get it from Highland Park. That is one of the things I like about Highland Park, is they have the replacement parts, including that little fan blade that I'm going to replace here. And like I say, I cracked the blade. I like to try and take care of my stuff. Let's see which one it is. There it is, right there. It was still holding on, but no reason to not replace it, especially when the parts are available and not expensive. So there's a replacement. Pull that right off the end. Put this one on. And this one's actually fitting a little tighter, which is not a bad thing. Make sure that it's not going to hit anything or obstruct. And I'm going to go ahead and put it back together. We're going to take and hold the box up and reattach the wires that were pulled off so that we could remove the box all the way. Just try and get it to where you can see it. And they just snap right back together. Make sure the tension is good on them, that they are inserted completely. And you'll get sometimes some oil inside here. If you've got oil in there, then go ahead and wipe that out. All right, now we've got the power back for that motor. Make sure those kind of go down towards the bottom when you put this in. And carefully, you can see where I broke it. Carefully make sure that you're going to get past that. And you can hold this. I like to use my belly for a lot of things. And get those screws started. It's always good to have pockets. You can find stuff. At least get those top ones in so that everything's held in place. And I'm going to do that so I can show you the rest of this. All right, so I put those in loose, and I'll show you why. I'm actually going to take this one out just for a second. Pull that away a little bit. Insert that first before you, just at least the wire through there. I'm going to put this screw back in, because that's going to hold that box on. And I'm leaving them loose for a reason. Set that to the side. Got that back in. Go ahead and thread that back in. And part of the reason you have to kind of thread this is because it's got the RTV cylinder on it. And that just makes it so that it's tight fit. You don't get leaks. Start that with your fingers. And you might need the wrench. And the reason you might need the wrench is because what that is for is that's RTV on there, and sometimes you can get it to where you can turn with your finger again. And that's going in easy. Now, I've done this a few times actually, and I haven't needed to put the RTV sealant. Thread that until it's at a stop. The washer, lock washer, and then the nut. And I do have magnetic parts holders, but just to let you know, some of these are stainless steel and it's completely useless to have that. And just get that tightened back on. Sorry, bumped the camera there. And it doesn't have to be done in a very aggressive manner, but that is cinched up well enough. All right, now we'll get the chain back on. Just going to use the pliers to spread that open a little bit so I can pull the chain back into that loop. A lot of times there'll be enough spring tension to keep that closed, but if you don't feel like it, you can always give it a little squeeze. Now the reason you leave the box a little loose is you want to make sure that that is aligned. And so if it isn't aligned, you can move the box side to side. Just try it out, see if it's easy. I'm a little bit bound up, so I'm going to tap the box over. And we're going to give it another try, just to see if it's moving in and out easy. Just wanted to make sure that it moved. And that's a lot easier. Feels good. So we're going to go ahead and tighten everything up. All right, with everything buttoned up, I'm going to make sure everything's working like it should. So with the saw motor unplugged, I'm going to turn it on. This is just the fan motor working and the feed screw working. So I see it's turning. I'm not hearing any abnormal noise. Fan's doing good. I can feel air moving. So we're good. If you find my videos helpful, please give them a like, subscribe to see what else is coming up, and if you have any suggestions, please put them in the comments. Also, any questions, I'll try and answer them as soon as I can. Thank you for your time.